Welcome to the first episode of the Reboot. I am your co-host. Some people call me JB. Some people call me Jody Breeze. Some people call me JB Good People. But for today, I'm just going to be Jordan Bell, and I am one of your two co-hosts of the Reboot. I would like to introduce our other co-hosts, my former college roommates, one of my best friends, the homie. Some people call him D Greasy. Some people call him DG. Some people call him Dave. Today we'll just call him my man, David Grunfeld. What it is, Playboy?
Jody Breeze, what's good, my guy? It is wonderful to be here with you. The homie is an understatement, dude. Jordan and I have been through a lot together. One of my best friends in the world, and no one I'd rather talk about reboots and our favorite ideas and how we can reimagine them with, because frankly, Jordan, we just do this. We've been doing this for as long as we've known each other, I think, in some version or another, saying, wouldn't it be cool if, such and such show, movie, whatever, had another take on it, or there was a sequel. And now we're going to have a chance to flesh it out, and it's going to be a blast. So it's wonderful to be here. And it's not just us today, Jordan, because as we know on the Reboot, we have guest, dare I say, celebrity judges on to listen to our ideas and ultimately decide which idea they find more interesting and compelling. And today, we are honored and graced by yet another College of Worcester fighting Scott, the alumni, also one of our best friends in the world, one of the most knowledgeable music and pop culture people in the game, the one and only Bill Farrow. Bill, welcome to the Reboot, friend.
Give it up.
Let's
Give
go.
it up for him.
Boys, and viewers. Thank y'all for having me. Thank y'all for making me the first judge. It's an honor to be here. Happy to pick y'all's brains, see where y'all's creative inspiration went, and do my best to be the best judge I know how to be. Unbiased, impartial, in the court of law. You know what I mean? So can't wait to dive in.
ATL is what we're going to be focused on today for our first ever episode of the Reboot.
Hey, listen here, homeboy.
ATL, baby. And we're going to put out a little piece of content that's going to give a nice 3 to 5 minute explanation of the Reboot. So you'll check that out before you listen or watch this episode. But in case you didn't, as a real quick explainer, Jordan and I are going to go ahead and take a look at the movie ATL. And we're going to both do our version of rebooting it. Now, rebooting it can mean a few different things. It could be a prequel. It could be a sequel. It could be a spinoff. It could be a reimagining. It could be a recasting. Kind of an open-ended idea of what we want to say rebooting is. We both selected one particular medium each today for ATL. We're going to take a look at the characters and cast and general storylines of the first movie that we love so much. And we're both going to give our spin on what the reboot's going to be. We're going to do it in 3 acts. These are not classically defined acts. We're not going to be doing line by line scene breakdowns, but we are going to be giving the general plot points, updates on characters, fun twists, things we think are going to be interesting. After each act break, our wonderful judge, Bill, will pop in, maybe ask a question or two, give some feedback, just, get an idea really of what we're cooking with over here. And at the end of our 3 acts, Bill's going to make a decision and decide if he were a big fancy movie executive, which of these ideas is he going to buy and go make? Jordan, did I miss anything, or is that just about it?
The only thing that you missed is that if Bill doesn't pick mine, he will never be invited back on the show.
Damn.
So, Bill,
Damn.
Choose wisely.
Damn. Bribery right off the jump. I love it. We're setting the tone here.
But no, you hit it out of the park. I think for us, it was only right that we started with this movie. This is our college roommate movie.
Totally.
This is the movie that you and I have quoted throughout the history of our friendship more than any other movie that we've ever watched together. It is not uncommon for either one of us to call the other and start the conversation with a line from this movie. So as we were going through this idea of how we were going to do this, it was only right that we started with ATL, shouting.
Had to be. Yeah. Well, let's with that. God damn, Carl Lewis, where you going? Had to get that one
like
in.
a stripper.
Shaking like a stripper. ATL, definitely one of the most quotable movies ever. And it's worth saying before we dive in, there were rumors and maybe like a trailer, maybe I saw once of an ATL 2 coming out. Like maybe maybe I just dreamed that or something, but like I could have sworn there was something about that. We are not involved with that, and nothing that we're going to talk about is related to whatever official production may or may not be happening. So if there's any lawyers in the house, we are not stealing anyone's idea. We are just a couple of idiots with some fun ideas.
On the flip side, T.I. and whoever else is involved in producing the sequel potentially, if you like our idea, holla at your boy.
Yeah, hit us up for sure. Okay, with that, Jordan, before we get into our first act and really dive into our stories, why don't you start and give Bill what we in the biz might call an elevator pitch, maybe a 15 to 30-second recap of what your story is going to focus on.
Sure. I'll start with my elevator pitch. So, Bill, the title of my ATL reboot, I'm doing a prequel. All right. So I am taking the story and I'm kind of kicking it off before we pick up the characters in ATL. And the title of my prequel is going to be called The Trap. Okay. And my elevator pitch is back in the day is the origin story of the characters we fell in love with in the cult classic ATL. Follow Rashad and the crew through the streets of ATL as family, drugs, women get in the way of them having the summer that they deserve.
Oof. Shit.
Frosty, chili.
I'm already shaking like a stripper. That was pretty good. I kind of want to watch that just on the elevator pitch. I like it. All right. So, Bill, I went a different way with things. Untitled project as of yet. We'll call it ATL the sequel for now, because it is in fact a sequel. And in ATL 2, we will be jumping ahead 20 years in the story, and we'll be looking at Rashad and the crew as adults, including Rashad as a single father to a son named Truth, who is an up-and-coming rapper in the ATL scene. We will be following Truth's journey as an up-and-coming rapper through the streets of ATL and all the intrigue, street shit, women, and fun that comes along with it. All right.
Bravo. I like it.
All right. So we got a prequel and a sequel. So we're gonna really know the story of these ATL characters by the end of this, all the fucking way from the beginning to the end. So with that, Jordan, you started us off. Why don't you start us off again? Act 1. How is the trap getting going here, my friend?
All right, Act 1. Before I start, Bill, any thoughts, any questions before I get going?
No, thank you both for setting the scene. Your two respective scenes. Maybe we end up with a trilogy at the end of this with the prequel, the ATL, and then the sequel. So yeah, you all have my glands salivating. I want to learn more. So hop into Act 1. Let me know. Let me know the details.
I got you. All right, I'm going to go first, Dave. Act 1, the trap. So in Act 1, we pick up the characters on the last day of freshman year. We've got Rashad, Esquire, Brooklyn, Teddy, and for those that remember ATL, Tanya, Rashad's ex-girlfriend in ATL, current girlfriend in the trap. Tanya and Rashad have been high school sweethearts for most of the year, and our buddy Esquire is dubious of this relationship. So it's the last day of freshman year, and Rashad's dad comes to pick him up from school. Again, if you remember in the original ATL, Rashad's parents had been killed in a car crash. In the trap, they're still living. So Rashad's dad comes to pick him up from school, and he is excited to talk to Rashad about this internship that he's gotten Rashad at the local newspaper where Rashad's dad works as an editor. Now, Rashad is not very interested in this job because it does not pay. Rashad, as a 14-year-old, of course, is anxious to prove that he can be a man and he can go out and make some real money over the summer. And he kind of just wants to skate with the homies, right? He's not real interested in being at the newspaper as an intern. Rashad also does not see himself as a writer like his dad, but as a 14-year-old just wants to skate. Rashad's dad urges him that working at the newspaper is a good idea, and even puts the idea in his mind that Rashad could one day take his doodles and his talent drawing and maybe be the guy that draws the comics in the Sunday Funnies. So next, we pick up Rashad and his dad. They are driving home, and he drops Rashad off at the house, and reinforces the idea of the newspaper job to him, and just says, "Man, son, think about it. This is really going to be a good opportunity for you." And he tells Rashad, "Look after your brother tonight. I'm going to go pick up your mother from work, and we're going to go out to dinner. We'll be back later." So Rashad goes home. He hangs out with his brother Ant. They're hanging out, watching movies, and they fall asleep on the couch. Next, Rashad and Ant are woken up by pounding on the door. It's Uncle George. Uncle George comes to the door. He rushes in, and he tells Rashad, "Hey, you and Ant need to get your stuff together. We need to go to the hospital. There's been an accident." So Rashad grabs Ant. They get their stuff together. They get dressed. They head to the hospital. And the next thing we find out is that Rashad's parents have been killed in a car crash on their way home from dinner. We next pick up Rashad and Ant and Uncle George at the front row of Rashad's parents' funeral. In the back row of the funeral is Esquire, Teddy, Brooklyn, and Tanya. Esquire, Teddy, and Brooklyn are having a conversation amongst themselves, saying, "Hey, we gotta pick Rashad up. We gotta keep him on the straight and narrow. He's our boy. We gotta look out for him. This is gonna be a tough time for him. We gotta look out for our guy." Tanya, on the other hand, feels quite the opposite. Tanya feels that it's time for Rashad to step up and be the man of the family and do what he's got to do to make some real money. End Act 1.
Heavy stuff, man. Chilling.
Heavy
I'm
stuff.
just typing my notes. That's why I was quiet for a
No,
little
You're
bit.
good. You're good.
I was just paying a moment of respect to Rashad's parents, after this tragedy. I love it. I love it, JBs. All right. So the prequel scene is set. Bill, I'll rip through my act 1, and then we can get some thoughts from you as we get started here. So we're going into the future in ATL 2. So we're 20 years ahead of where we were in ATL 1. And I think one of my favorite things about the original ATL is it really feels like a time capsule of the era that it was made in and where it was made. It feels like early 2000s Atlanta. And it's really important that ATL 2 does the same thing for contemporary Atlanta. So we're going to start the movie similarly to how the first ATL starts, which is Rashad's going to be narrating, and he's going to be introducing, or in this case, reintroducing us to all the characters and letting us know rather what everybody's up to. But it's going to be done in the background of contemporary Atlanta. So there's like the water boys running up to them. There's the strip club scene as being showcased effectively. There's cookouts going on. So we really know that we're in early 2020s Atlanta. And as we get these updates, we learn, like I said in the elevator pitch, Rashad is a single dad. We learn that Nunu has passed away along with Uncle George. We find this out as a montage. So Rashad tells us that she passed away, but does not really get into the details, just lets us know that it was unexpected. We have Rashad no longer working at the paper, but is actually running a tattoo shop with Teddy, who does the actual tattooing, and Rashad is doing the designs that people are getting tatted onto them. And even though it seems like it might be a fun situation, we get the impression that Rashad is not super thrilled with the arrangement because he'd rather be doing his own thing. Teddy is a total pimp. His kind of shtick through the movie is that every scene he's in, there's going to be a new woman on his side. He's just out here absolutely pimping and hustling. And then Brooklyn, building off the end of ATL 1, where he was promoted to being a manager of a fast food joint, now is running a franchise of fast food operations around Atlanta. So he's kind of leveled up his operation. He's still very involved, but he's kind of more in the boss role at this point. And then finally, that brings us to Esquire and Ant. Esquire is now running the biggest music label in Atlanta, the biggest hip hop label in Atlanta. After making money in finance, he decided to take over the biggest label in Atlanta. Ant is working underneath him at the label as his kind of protege, working under him and learning as he works in the industry. In this montage, in addition to learning that Nunu has passed away, we learn that Rashad and Esquire had a big falling out and they haven't spoken to each other in years. So, with the scene set and updates given on all of our characters, we now get into the contemporary scene, which is hanging at the tat shop. Truth, who is Rashad's son, is freestyling, doing things around town that's kind of building buzz for his name as an up-and-coming rapper. Everyone in the crew, Brooklyn and Teddy and everybody, knows that he's an up-and-coming rapper, but he hasn't yet gone into the Esquire Ant world of labels because Rashad has an issue with him and because he's just not quite big enough yet. So he's still kind of building his buzz out. But as we see him kind of growing and doing his thing, maybe another montage, maybe a couple scenes of seeing how this works, we're seeing that Rashad is encouraging him to stay away from internet and going to physically give his music to people. So he's using Brooklyn's chicken joints as a place where he can go pass out mixtapes. And what we're going to see is that the crowd start to grow. More people start to get interested. We're seeing that his buzz is building around town. Rashad's very proud of him. We're starting to see his career kind of take off in this new Atlanta rap scene. So one of these times, as the end of this montage kind of concludes, Truth is at a chicken joint. There's a big crowd around him. He's passing out his mixtapes. And then this gangster comes up to him, a guy who's clearly a gangster. We're going to call him Ghost for the time being. So Ghost approaches Truth. And I'm going to do something, I'm not sure, Jordan, if you're doing this on your side, but in my movie, I'm going to cast a couple of roles. And Ghost is going to be played by Gucci Mane. So Gucci Mane, Atlanta legend, is now approaching Truth, basically saying, I heard about you, young buck. Let's see what you got. Challenges Truth to rap on the spot for him in this chicken joint. He does so, impresses him. Ghost is fired up and basically says, I'm going to keep my eye on you. Keep grinding. This whole time, as the crowd has been growing, Truth has always had a lady by his side. This is Lucy. Lucy is his girlfriend and someone that he met at school. But Lucy's important because she's always going to be supporting Truth and she's always filming everything that he's doing. So she has always got her phone out. She's always posting stuff. She's always trying to help him grow his career. So she films this exchange with Ghost and with Truth. Everyone's excited. Truth goes back to the tat shop to go tell Rashad. As he does, Ant is there, and Ant delivers the news to him that Esquire and his label are finally ready to have a meeting with him in the potential of signing him, and they'd like for him to come to the office and get signed by Esquire. End of Act 1.
Burr, 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 burr. Glad that Gucci Mane finds a way into the franchise.
Had to get Gucci in. Had to get Gucci in. Had to get Gucci in.
Because it is a lemon.
And I did forget to mention one thing. I'm not going to do this every act, but on this one, it's important. Brooklyn and his fast food chicken spots that he's the franchise owner of. As we're seeing Truth perform there and we're seeing, his various businesses, a consistent problem that he's having is people keep pissing on his restaurants. Like random people are just coming up and pissing on the side of his restaurant and walking away. And he's desperately trying to figure out how to stop that. So that's kind of cooking as Truth is growing and becoming a bigger rapper. So just a detail I wanted to add. But Bill, curious to hear your thoughts after two very different Act 1s on a prequel and a sequel here.
Jordan, talk to me a little bit about the relationship between Rashad's dad and Rashad, where he's given the pitch about the internship at the paper. This is just maybe a personal question and maybe doesn't affect the plot too much. Is the conversation contentious? Like, do they leave on bad terms more or less? Or is it just like one of those stern talking to father-son conversations? So you can see that there's depth and love in all of those emotions that we often associate with parenthood, speaking to a child.
No, the idea is to actually paint a really good picture about Rashad's dad and his relationship with him. in the original ATL movie, they talk very little about the parents, but it's clear that Rashad has an admiration for his parents. And so the idea is to give you two scenes of Rashad and his father, and create an admiration. So it's a stern talk, but it's a stern talk with love, right? They're not walking away upset with each other. It's just Rashad's dad saying to him, look, son, this is going to be good for you. And as all 14-year-old boys think they know better than their fathers, Rashad thinks he knows better than his dad. But it's all out of love. There's clearly love on both sides.
Got you. Okay. No, that's solid. I was going to ask about Tanya wanting to Rashad to step up and be a man as a 14-year-old, because I thought that was pretty, just like combination funny, but also just like of the scope of a 14-year-old being like, you got to start earning this bread. But obviously that'll unfold more in the film, so I want to leave that open.
Correct.
Uh, David, do we get a little bit of context on how long Truth has been rapping, passing out mixtapes,
Yeah.
and any sort of elaboration on why Rashad wants him to stay off the internet
Yeah.
and hand out physicals?
Good questions. I kind of envision the whole thing as almost like a love letter homage to the Atlanta hip hop community. So
Sure.
I want him to like do it the right way. He wants him to do it with the streets the right way, not blowing up online or whatever. And I think that there's also a tie into like Rashad being a like manual artist or an artist that
Sure.
works on physical stuff, and I think there's a connection there, and he probably has a tie to it there as well.
Right on. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It reminds me of American Gangster when they're in, I guess, him and Denzel and Russell Crowe are talking, and Denzel's like, I always took care of Brooklyn, so Brooklyn's going to take care of me, and you don't do that without obviously physically being in the community. So
Exactly.
that was the parallel that I drew.
Dave, I've got to give you some credit for throwing Gucci in there. I'm jealous that I didn't think of that. That's great. Bling blah
Well, bling blow blur. Spoiler alert. It's not going to be the last fun cameo we're going to have here in
Love
ATL
it.
too.
I would hope not.
But with that, Jordan, since let's keep the same rotation. Why don't you pick up Act 2?
All right, here we go. Act numero dos. So it's been a month since Rashad's parents' funeral, and Uncle George has moved into Rashad and Aunt's house and is now their legal guardian. Aunt is having a tough time. He's just lost mom and dad. Uncle George has moved into the house. Aunt's struggling a little bit. And so he goes down to the basement to have a talk with Rashad, and he and Rashad are talking about how terrible life has been the last month and what they need to do, and how much he hates the fact that Uncle George is living in their house now. And Rashad decides that he's going to take matters into his own hands, and he is going to figure out a way to move he and Aunt out of Uncle George's house. We then pick up the characters at the infamous Cascade on Old People's Night. We've got Rashad, Esquire, Brooklyn, Teddy, and Tanya all hanging out on Old People's Night at Cascade. Esquire, Brooklyn, and Teddy are trying to convince Rashad that he should go and take his job at the newspaper. The newspaper has decided to hold Rashad's job, give him some time to grieve the death of his family, but they've let him know that he's welcome to come back at any point in time. Rashad thinks that his father would want him to do what's best for him and Aunt and go and make some real money so that they can get out of Uncle George's house. Tanya, of course, agrees with Rashad and lets him know that if he's ready to make some real money, she knows how to get it done. The next day, Uncle George takes Rashad and Aunt downtown so that they can settle their parents' estate. The state rules that all of Rashad's parents' assets, including the house, is going to go to the control of Uncle George, as long as he keeps Rashad and Aunt together and doesn't allow for them to go into foster care. Rashad is pissed. He's not very happy about this. And to make matters worse, Uncle George plans to use Rashad's parents' money to purchase the cleaning business that he's been working at for the last 10 years. Rashad immediately goes to Tanya and lets her know that he's ready to do whatever it takes to make some money so that he can get a place for him and Aunt to stay so they can get away from old Uncle George. Tanya takes Rashad to her cousin, Mo. Now, Mo is the plug. Mo has the hookup with all the drugs, and he's going to hook up Rashad and Tanya and get them slanging. So Mo sets up Tanya and Rashad, and they start trapping out of Tanya's mother's house because Tanya's mother is never home. End of Act 2.
I'll just say, I love that Tanya is featured so heavily in the prequel because I totally, even in rewatching the movie, just like didn't focus on her as a character. So it's fun to see her kind of get brought to life a little bit.
Well, in the first movie, they clearly like hate each other and clearly have had some type of relationship.
Right.
But we get no explanation for it.
Right.
He's just like, every time she comes around, he's just like, get away from me. Like, you suck. Like, your mother's never home. You suck.
Well,
so now we know.
Yeah.
Tanya's mom is never home, and they've been trapping at
Trapping will do that to folks. Trapping will do
right.
that to folks. All right,
That's
cool.
right.
I love it. Bill, you ready for my act 2, or you have any quick clarifiers for Jordan?
No, I will wait until you give your second verse.
Yeah. So into Act 2 of ATL 2, where we had just left off, where Truth, Rashad's son, just got invited to a meeting with Esquire, the head of the label, potentially wanting to sign him. So he goes to this meeting with Ant, who again is Esquire's kind of number 2. And when Truth gets there, we can see immediately that Esquire has changed a lot from the first ATL. And Esquire is a lot more like John Garnett from the first ATL, father of Nunu. Successful businessman, but that's come at the cost of him being himself. Like, we see that he is very much in business guy executive mode, different from the down-to-earth great friend that we saw in the first movie. And we can see that Ant is kind of being forced into that mold as well. Esquire's kind of saying, if you want to be successful, you're going to do it my way. And we can see Ant struggling with that. You know, it's like, am I being true to myself and my brother and my family, or do I want to be successful in the way that Esquire clearly found a way to go be successful? So as we go into this meeting, Esquire tells Truth, I think you're amazing. Your dad and I had our things. We had our falling out. I'm willing to put that aside. I want to sign you. I want you to start recording your album as soon as possible. So immediately, Truth is excited. He's ready to go do it. And Esquire says, the one thing that you can't do is you can't get involved in any street shit. Like, I don't work with artists that get me in jeopardy like that. I didn't become this successful by doing that. No street shit. If I see that you're involved in any street shit, our deal is canceled. So he says, okay, all good. Leaves the studio, fired up, ready to go tell Lucy, ready to go tell everybody. And he immediately is confronted by the one and only Ghost. Gucci's back in the mix, like weirdly quickly after this meeting, and doesn't threaten him and doesn't say anything explicitly, but makes him feel his presence enough so that Truth goes to Ant and says, hey, look, I know he just said no street shit. This dude is in my business. You know, how do I handle this? And Ant basically says, don't worry about it. Don't stress. He's not going to know anything about this guy. You're just going to make your music, focus on being successful. He says, okay, that sounds good. So we fast forward a little bit, and it's the day that Truth is going to start recording his album. And he's in the studio. Lucy's there. His whole squad is there. He's doing his thing. And as he's in the booth, Ghost and his crew bust into the studio and start beating everybody up, start robbing the studio session. They bust into the recording booth. They get Truth jammed up. They rough him up a little bit. They steal his shit. Ghost acts like he's never met him before, you know, essentially spits on him. And as everybody's laying on the ground, jacked up from what just happened, Truth, in kind of like his half-conscious state, hears Ghost say something about Esquire by name as he walks out of the studio. And Truth doesn't know exactly what's happening yet, but now he knows that somehow Ghost and Esquire know each other and are connected. And he pulls himself up out of the studio and starts to drag himself to the tattoo shop to tell Rashad and the boys about what's going on. End of Act 2.
Dang.
You got to watch out for Gucci, bro. He's gonna come get you.
Always.
He's gonna come get you if you're not ready for it. I wanted it to be Gucci because I wanted it to be an ATL rap legend, but I also wanted it to be someone who has done it. He's really been a trapper in Atlanta. He carries that kind of weight. I think he would be an interesting guy in this role.
As you threw Gucci into your story, I briefly Googled some rappers that I could throw into mine, but none of them. You'll find out in the next act why none of them will work. So
sure.
that's fantastic. I love that. Bill, I'm sorry I cut you off. Go ahead.
Nah. I'll just go in the order of presentation here. Jordan, my question for you is obviously the relationship between Uncle George, Rashad, is fleshed out in the original ATL movie. So we have that as a reference point and inference point, given that this is a prequel, right? But these characters, I guess, are spending extended time with each other for the first time, I guess, in this movie so far. And
Sure.
so how are you introducing this relationship? Is it very much building off of the original ATL plot, or is it meant to be treated as something new? And I ask because if they knew each other with the depth that is fleshed out in ATL, then what Uncle George wants to do with the estate money, I guess, may or may not come as a surprise. And so I'm just curious on how that relationship is being presented to the viewers.
Yeah. So when I originally started working on this, I almost started kind of doing it scene by scene, and then I realized that would be overkill. But as I was kind of mapping it out scene by scene, I was going to have a little bit more dialogue between Rashad and Uncle George, kind of illustrating that Rashad's not crazy about him, and neither is Aunt, right? Like, he's their uncle. They respect him. He's not a terrible dude, but they're not thrilled about their living situation.
Mhm.
And he's just kind of Uncle George, right? He's just kind of their uncle that has always been around, has never really done much with his life, and has jumped on this opportunity to get this free house as long as he just keeps Rashad and Ant together. So if I had a little bit more of a drawn out explanation, there would have been a little bit more,
Sure.
kind of back and forth bumping heads between Rashad and Uncle George. But the consensus is that they tolerate each other is probably the best way.
Okay. That's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you. In regards to the newspaper holding the internship spot for Rashad.
There'll be more explanation about
Cool.
the newspaper in Act 3, but as of right now, the newspaper is very much so in the background.
Cool. Right on.
Rashad's trapping. He's trying to make that money. He's trying to find a place to
Be a man at
Yeah,
14.
he's trying to be a 14-year-old man.
David, questions for you about
Yes.
Act 2. Everything seems shipshape. Is Lucy in this first studio session?
Yes, Lucy is in the studio session. And I forgot to say in my Act 1 explanation, Lucy goes by Lulu. So
Dear God, it all
yeah,
lines up.
oh yeah. We're making references to ATL1 big time. Lulu is kind of ever present with Truth. She's like always
Okay.
there with him, and again, always documenting, always on the phone,
Yeah.
posting. She's like his PR, one
Mhm.
woman PR team, basically, is kind of how in a way that only, like, in my experience in life, people who have been together for a really long time or from a really young age are like down for each other in a certain type of way. That's
Yeah.
what Truth and Lucy have going on.
Cool.
Yeah.
All
Good
good. I'm
question.
just trying to figure out how to use this $40 million to make a movie. So,
It's a big responsibility in your hands right now, Bill.
I
So I
mean,
get it.
what's $40 million to a guy like me, you
I
know?
love
So,
it.
go.
I love it.
There you go.
I did introduce you as a celebrity, so you gotta back that up.
hey, it will come to pass.
That's right. That's right. All right, Jordan, take us there, brother. I'm excited for this finale.
All right, Act 3, we're gonna bring it home. So it's been a few weeks, and we get a montage of Rashad. I keep getting ready to call him Ti. We get a montage of Rashad and Tanya, trapping. Right, they're trapping out of Tanya's mom's house because, again, Tanya's mother is never home. And Rashad is kind of building this up, and Brooklyn and Teddy and Esquire This is much to their chagrin, but Rashad's trying to make that money. He's going to get him and his brother Ant out of there. Uncle George could care less. Uncle George doesn't mind Rashad making his own money. We're not even totally sure if he's aware of it, but this is what's going on. So then we pick up the story with Esquire, Teddy, and Brooklyn going to the movies to go catch a flick. And they see in the corner of the movie theater Tanya and Mo, the plug. Here's the only problem. It doesn't appear that Mo is her cousin. As a matter of fact, it looks like Tanya and Mo are on a date. The guys leave the theater and rush over to Rashad's house to let him know what they've seen. And Rashad does not believe them. So they tell Rashad, come on back with us to the theater and see for yourself. The guys get back to the theater just in time to see Tanya and Mo walking out of the movie theater and get a little smooch and a pat on the ass on the way out. So now Rashad knows that Tanya has been lying to him this whole time, and Mo is not the plug, or Mo is the plug, but he's not her cousin. Mo is another dude that she's kicking it with, we'll say. So Rashad and the guys go back to the house, and Rashad is furious. And he goes into his dad's garage, and he finds his dad's old handgun. The guys plead with Rashad to not do it, but Rashad does not listen. And Rashad and the guys head on over to Tanya's house on their bikes. And they don't, and we do not know, and the guys do not know what's about to happen next. Rashad gets back to the house, gets to Tanya's house, and finds Tanya sitting on Mo's lap on the porch. And he runs up to confront the both of them. Mo at this point knows what's up and is not afraid, and confronts Rashad and confirms that he and Tanya are not cousins and that they've been seeing each other behind Rashad's back the whole time. A fight between the two of them break out, and Rashad's gun ends up on the floor. There's a struggle. Rashad ends up grabbing the gun, and Mo takes off behind the house as Rashad fires 2 shots at Mo. The guys go back behind the house to see if Rashad got him, and he did not. Mo got away, and so the guys quickly leave, ride their bikes back to Rashad's house. Esquire pulls Rashad to the side in the kitchen and lays into him. Hey, man, this isn't what your dad would have wanted. This isn't you. You're not this kind of guy. You need to get your life back together. Rashad looks at Esquire and eventually realizes that Esquire is right. And he takes the gun back to the garage, where he finds Ant in the garage looking at some old photos of the family. Rashad pulls Ant to the side and tells him that for now, they're going to have to suck it up and live with their Uncle George until they get out of high school. Rashad isn't going to go back and work for the newspaper, but instead he's going to take a job with Uncle George at the cleaners, and hopefully he'll be able to save up enough money over time so that he and Ant can get their own place when Ant graduates high school. We end with one of the infamous narrations from Rashad saying that he's never going to touch drugs again, and he's never going to let Ant touch drugs either. End of film.
Oh. Tanya, fucking trifling. Oh,
Trifling.
no wonder he wants nothing to do with her in the first ATL. Kidding me?
That's right.
With Mo? Oh, hate to see it. Hate to see it.
Mo money, mo problems, mo trapping, mo problems. Unreal.
Something like that. I love it, Jordan. That's awesome, dude. Very nice. Very nice. All right. Big finish, Bill, unless you have any questions before I jump into mine.
Nah, hop. Wait, hold on. Let me get my notes in order.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. Get your notes in order.
Hop
So
in.
we're popping back into mine in Act 3. Truth and his squad just got their asses kicked in the studio and robbed by Ghost and his crew. He's bloody. He's not doing well. He heard Ghost say something about Esquire. So Truth makes his way with Lucy back to the tat shop. The whole squad is there. Teddy, Brooklyn, and Rashad. And Ant is also there. He tells him what happened. He said, how does this gangster know who Esquire is? Like, what's going on? I just want to make music. Rashad asks Ant what the fuck is going on, because Ant has been kind of his tie into this world because he's not communicating with Esquire. We still don't know exactly what happened there. And Ant basically says, I don't know anything about it. Like this is first I'm hearing about it. Let's go talk to him. So Rashad finally realizes I need to go confront Esquire. I need to go talk to this guy that I haven't talked to in years. And so he and the whole squad, Truth, the friends, everybody's going back to the label office so that they can go confront Esquire about what the hell's going on. As they get to the office, they realize that Ghost is already there, who welcomes them into the office by pointing a gun at them and says, welcome in. So they all walk into Esquire's office. Lucy, Truth, Rashad, Teddy, Brooklyn, Ghost, and Esquire. And finally, in this huge climactic scene, everything comes out about what's been happening. Esquire bought the label with money that he made from working in finance. When he worked in finance, he managed Rashad and Nunu's money. Nunu got sick and had cancer, and Esquire mismanaged their money and stole from them, which made it harder to treat Nunu. And in Rashad's mind, he's responsible for Nunu dying, which was their original split and why they originally stopped becoming friends. But like we saw earlier, Esquire started down this path of kind of like corporate greed, bad guy. And in this conversation, it comes full circle that he has fully gone the evil guy route. And not only is he looking to sign Truth and make money off him as an artist, he also works directly with Ghost routinely so that he can rob his artists illegally and make money from them that way, and then make money off the music that they make legally. So he's really turned into this corporate monster bad guy who's tapping into the traditional channels and the street channels to kind of poison Atlanta and poison the music scene with stuff that isn't good, right? He's a bad guy. He turns into a bad guy. And as all this is coming to, being revealed, Rashad finally asks him, why are you telling us all this? And he's basically says, because we're going to take you out. Like you guys know too much about this already. And now, Ghost is going to do what Ghost does. And I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing. And as Ghost kind of like gets his gun ready and is about to lead them out the room, we see Brooklyn and Lucy kind of step forward. And Brooklyn says, Ghost, when you met Truth way back, that was at one of my chicken shops, right? He was like, yeah. And he was like, well, why are you there? And Esquire says, well, we're going to kill you anyway. So I'll just tell you, we've been doing our drops at your chicken shops the entire time we've been working together, because I know that nobody would ever fucking check that place. So we always met up at your spots so we could do our deals. And Brooklyn was like, that's cool, because people have been pissing on my walls. So I have cameras all over every chicken shop that I run. And then Lucy steps forward and says, yeah, come to think of it, I have footage of every time that you've been together. And I bet when I look through that footage, I'm going to find some footage of the two of you guys interacting with each other. And then Ant steps forward finally and says, I've known about this the whole time. Rashad, I'm so sorry I lied to you. Esquire, Ghost, I will come forward and tell everyone what you guys have been doing if you don't let us go. So with that kind of like heel turn, Esquire basically says, okay, we're gonna let this drop. Lulu, who's always been a proponent of Truth being an independent artist, says, fuck this. We're gonna go independent and do it the right way. And they all leave. And then we kind of kick into, Jordan, what you described as that infamous monologue, like how we started the movie. We're gonna kind of end on that climactic big scene in the label office with Rashad explaining how everything is kind of shaken out or how everybody's doing. And it's not going to be Truth being a superstar yet. It's going to be Truth is continuing to build his name up around the rap scene. And the final scene of the movie is Truth and Rashad and the boys at a rap show in Atlanta. It's like a who's who of Atlanta artists. So we've got Andre up there, not Big Boy, because we can't break the continuity from first ATL. So in this universe, it's just going to be Andre, Future, Lil Baby, everybody. Everything that has made up the contemporary Atlanta rap scene is on stage. And then they stop the show. They say, we got a special guest in attendance today, one of the biggest up and coming artists in Atlanta. Truth, come on up here. Truth is welcomed on stage by Atlanta hip hop royalty. End of movie. The future is bright.
Good job, boys.
I love it. That was great. I love that final. I could picture that final scene with all the ATL rappers up there. That's dope. Minus Gucci and Big Boy, who are very
Minus good and Ti for that matter. But mine would straddle the line of suspension of disbelief a little bit, because there'd be some rappers playing roles and some rappers just being rappers. But that was fun. That was really fun. Bill, I'm excited to hear your thoughts.
Boys, good job bringing everything full circle. Just a couple of questions, Jordan. In regards to the reconciliation and going back to work with Uncle George, you mentioned earlier that does Uncle George even know that he's like how he's making his money, da 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 da. So does it feel like, hey, we're just gonna at the end of the movie, does it feel like a reconciliation between the two parties, or it's just like, hey, we're just gonna keep living under dude's roof, and that carries us into the relationship that obviously unfolds in ATL?
Yeah, I think it's a mutual understanding between Uncle George and Rashad that Rashad.
This is what it is for now.
This is what it is. We're gonna live with you. You know, as Rashad says in ATL, this is my daddy house. But you know, Uncle George, this is what the state has ruled. We're gonna live with you, and I'm gonna work at the cleaners, and you know, I'm gonna try and get this money until I can raise enough money to move out.
Right on. That makes sense. Thank you for expanding a little bit further. David, I'll move on to my questions for you. You mentioned that we're not defeating Ghost, we're not defeating Esquire this time. What was some of the thought process behind that? Because there is this ever-present, ever-powerful Atlanta music force that is now in the way of an independent artist, despite the happy ending. So why leave it open-ended in that regard, especially since we know Esquire more or less is everywhere, and now a young independent artist has to look over his shoulder with a guy like Ghost who will enact violence on him and Lucy, or maybe shoot up the tattoo shop or whatever.
More sequels, baby. I love it. More sequels. Just keep making movies about this. No, it's valid.
The Capitalist Manifesto.
Yeah, exactly. Just more of everything. No, I think it's more like they got out of the room, and then it's going to be an ongoing thing that they're going to be negotiating and figuring out. The finale and how we use the footage that is available to really pin them would need to be probably figured out a little bit more to really answer that, to give them a reason to not just kill them in the room or whatever. Sure. But I think I do like the idea of that being a thing that continues on, because it is, right? I think if you are a Truth, if you are an up and coming rapper in Atlanta or anywhere these days, they're going to be Ghosts and Esquires of the world that you're going to need to, kind of negotiate and figure out. So I kind of like the idea of it being this part of the story being concluded, but like the themes are ongoing.
And then final question, just out of curiosity, in this Esquire handling Rashad and Nunu's money, and you said that he basically, you said that he stole from them. How come legal action was never taken?
Because I think Rashad didn't want to go down that path. And I think that it was like Esquire using his knowledge of finance in a way that he made it very difficult to
super convoluted
track. And I think like in my mind, like I'm blanking right now. I could look it up, but the actor who plays John Garnett in the original one, whose iconic voice, iconic everything. Yes. What's his name? Oh goodness. Keith David. There it is. I looked it up, right? So like Keith David, like who did such a great job in that role too. Like I envision Esquire, like, because at the end of the first ATL, he's in the Ivy League. He's in these new spaces. I kind of like this character as him, like embracing the worst of those traits and consciously saying like, okay, I am trained and educated in these fields. Now, how do I use this to, better myself at all costs? Kind of that kind of vibe. So I think it
The
was less
Capitalist Manifesto.
the Capitalist Manifesto. And I think it was like Rashad knowing something fishy occurred, but not, exactly
He's just not
having the
financially
details.
savvy enough to prove it.
Right. Not
Because
not
how
not
could
his
you be?
lane. Yeah, not his thing.
You hire your lifelong friend to do right by you, and you never really assume that they won't,
The
right?
betrayal
I'm with
was
you.
something he wouldn't forgive, right? Even if he was savvy to the financials, probably.
Right on. Well, thank you both for entertaining my questions. Now that the story is full circle, I wanted to make sure I went back to
Of
each
course.
respective act a little bit. So thank you for the clarity. At this point, now you want me to transition into picking a winner, correct?
It's decision time, Bill.
Big time.
Cool, cool. Okay, so here is how I'm going to do it. I'll do a brief summary of what I liked most about every act since I just peppered you all with questions. And then I'll give my decision. I'll try not to be too long. I'll do everybody once. Jordan, I'll do all three acts of yours at first. And then David, I'll do yours second.
Let's hear it.
So, Jordan, what I love about your act one in particular is the fact that you elaborated and gave real context to Rashad and his dad's relationship, and that it is a strong familial environment, right? And that these things that weren't necessarily fleshed out in ATL all the way now have some living, breathing context and act as a strong enough point for people to either start at the prequel or have those memories or emotions activate from obviously watching ATL and then going back to the prequel. Really like that. Thought it was also funny that I just love this whole Rashad needs to step up and be a man at 14. It's just like it's like so insane. But it like I was an insane 14-year-old thinking I needed to stack paper at all costs too. So I can't be mad at that.
Exactly.
What I like about Act Two is the fact that Rashad's homies are always, trying to be like the angel on the shoulder, right? And showing that strong community and then building that thread further. I love the fact that Tanya's mom is just never around. I really love that. Like we don't even get an appearance even in the prequel. I just think that's pretty funny. Like, no, she's just like she is literally a plot device, and I'm going to continue that in the prequel. I think that's pretty cool. Just a little bit of comedy in that regard. I also like the fact that Uncle George had a plan to use the estate money in the way that he's, saw fit for not just him, but the boys as well. So it wasn't like a greed play or anything, not unlike Esquire and David's, sequel. So, and then Act Three, I like the fact that Mo and Tanya were in a relationship. That was a twist that I didn't necessarily see coming. Maybe shame on me for not putting on my predictive hat there. But I like the fact that uh, also that they were at the movies long enough where the boys could go back, warn Rashad, and then get back to the movie theater, and they were still there. I kind of like that. It's like, damn, these boys were really biking. Like this was a Tour de France. I love it. They were acting with urgency. But I also like the fact that Mo just never shows his face again. Me, thinking that he was going to get his lick back in some way, and there was going to be extra conflict. I was kind of on the edge of my seat thinking that, but this ever looming presence or threat like you elaborated on saying, hey, Rashad's a man and he's going to do what he has to do. I kind of like that little bow on this particular portion of your movie. David, what I like about Act One of your script is this really kind of love letter to ATL that you were describing in the recapping or recounting of Rashad's narration to really do right by the city. I think one of the reasons that ATL, the show, Donald Glover's show, or Atlanta, Donald Glover's show, excuse me, is so beloved is based on what I heard from living in Atlanta for 3 years, is that he really did right by the city. And so that homage portion, I think, would be really strong. Also, that's just a personal note since I was in Atlanta for 3 years. I also love the fact that Rashad's at a tattoo shop, kind of taking that whole doodle aspect of his character and elaborating on it in an interesting way that maybe we didn't even see coming. Right. I think that's pretty cool. Act Two. Well, Act One, love the fact that Gucci Mane's also in the movie. That's pretty dope. Act
I also
Two,
love that part.
yeah, really good stuff. Act Two, I like the fact that and more or less is waffling. At this point, we don't know, but he's a waffling character trying to make sure he's securing his future. So that adds depth to the character, depth to the conflict. Overall, I think that's a really smart elaboration. And then in Act Three, I love the fact that there's kind of this team up and Esquire's just leaning into the full evil thing. Like there's just no redeeming this guy at this point. Like people actually make their choices in life and sometimes you really can't go back. And the fact that there isn't a bow on this relationship anymore and it's fractured beyond repair to the point that Esquire would even put Rashad's son in danger is like true supervillain type shit. And I actually love that because I think characters are who they should be. And if the corporate greed and the success get to you, that is not unheard of in any respect. So I actually really do like that. So good job to both of you. If I had $40 million to make a movie, I would ask for $80 million so I could make both of these into a movie.
That's a good friend. That's a good friend right there.
Yeah, if I had, I wish I had two thumbs, two thumbs up or four thumbs up so I could, the whole Dave Chappelle skit. But I'm actually going to say the winner is going to be Jordan in this case.
God.
What I really appreciate, I'm also just biased towards prequels. I love knowing where shit comes from, so that's just on me. And Jordan doesn't even know that about me, but he kind of played the man. Yeah, he kind of played the man on this one without even knowing it.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that you get to see the gears turning in Rashad and the other boys' heads in the midst of tragedy because you get a chance to really, it's the prequel to a coming of age story. And you get to understand these motivations that obviously play into the original ATL movie. And it just continues to add that depth. It's not necessarily a continuation like a sequel would be. It's rebuilding and recontextualizing through past events, which I think is super cool to see from a storytelling perspective. And that is more or less what sold it to me overall. Well, I also love the fact that in this cinematic universe where this is actually a trilogy, Esquire is so much the voice of reason in the prequel to becoming a supervillain in the third movie.
I thought about that as well. I was like, he really took a serious turn in this trilogy.
He is the example that money does change you.
Money corrupts. Yeah, money is the root of all evil. Wow. Well, thank you, Bill.
Yes, thank you.
If I could say one more thing.
Oh, of course, please.
Yeah. You know how we split hairs on the Hit Cycle podcast between 70s and 80s, and you know that I try to stay away from 5 grades, so 75s versus 80s. Sure. If these scripts were on that 70 to 80 scale, David, this is a 79, and Jordan, this is an 80. Like we are literally splitting the hairs because I love the continuity of all of them.
I appreciate it, and Jordan, congratulations! You're the inaugural the reboot winner. You're starting it off. So we're the idea is that we're going to do this for each episode, and Jordan and I will have a little ongoing scoreboard here, and it's going to be great. So Jordan starts it off 1-0. And I will say thank you, Bill, for your kind words and for your lovely judgment. Great job. I think that two fun ideas, two very different ideas. I think, Jordan, in addition to being a prequel and agreeing, Bill, with what you said, yours is more stylistically what the first ATL was like. Like yours feels more like a coming of like what Bill said. Like we're learning the background of these guys. We're understanding why they are why they are the way they are in the first movie. And I think mine is more of a scaled up kind of fun, look at the whole city, which both might have a place out there. But Jordan, great job, man, and congratulations.
You took more risk than I did. You took the story and you took two totally different spins on it, and you threw new characters in there. I didn't. I got one new character. You've got multiple. Hey. I am jealous of the idea of adding Gucci Man to this. Like I
Future and Lil Baby and Andre.
I wish I had thought of that. So that was brilliant.
Final thoughts, if I may. One thing I really liked about David's screenplay script is the fact that it is very akin to like the cinematic universe of life after Truth goes down this independent track, and Esquire and Ghost can still quite literally be roadblocks. I just think it sets up so many opportunities for the spin-off TV show
It's a
or the
sequel
other
game,
or the
baby.
So
Let's go make some money together. Yeah.
you know me with the comic book writing and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Like I'm
Yeah.
thinking in similar terms too.
That's
So I
right.
really
I
I
appreciate
tried to
that.
play the man a little bit too, but you know, what are you gonna do?
I'm thinking Broadway with mine. So
the stage reimagining of ATL, the prequel. I mean,
right, the trap as we call it.
excuse me, the trap. Of course, you also titled your project, which I should have done. So that was a good call. But listen, they made a Broadway show about Spider-Man. They could make a Broadway show about ATL. Like I don't see why that's an issue. But amazing. Well, Bill, you're the best. We appreciate you being our first ever guest judge and being so insightful and impartial. Jordan, I'm going to give you the last word as our big winner here in episode 1. Take us home, my guy.
All right. This was the inaugural episode of Reboot. Thank you so much for watching, listening, and joining us today. Thanks again to our wonderful guest, Bill. We appreciate you. This will not be the last time that the viewers/listeners will see Bill, I'm sure. Bill and I also have some projects coming up, so be on the lookout for that. And until the next time, I am your co-host, Jordan, with my co-host, David. And Bill, thank you so much. This is The Reboot, and we're out. Peace.